This is the new Mazda 6e, and this is an exclusive UK first drive. We're here somewhere near the border of Wales to test out these cars. This is an early European car, so this is on Swiss plates, left-hand drive, but they've invited us out here to check it out, which is the future of Mazda and their electric vehicles. Mazda are typically known for their driving dynamics and attention to detail when it comes to physical controls, but this is kind of a departure from that. They claim that the nearly 50-50 weight distribution makes for a fairly dynamic drive, which we'll find out in a little bit, because this being based on a Chinese brand car, the Deepal, actually is more of a tech fest than mainly really a rival to something like a BYD Seal or a Tesla Model 3. So let's explore it then. I'm going to take you on a full tour of the car. We'll take it out on the road and give it a spin, and hopefully we'll give you a more in-depth review later on next year when it hits UK showrooms. But for now, I want to show you the ins and outs of this car, and I do think it looks pretty good. So this is effectively an electric replacement for the Mazda 6, and it is an all-electric rear-wheel drive powertrain, and there is two different options. So there's a normal lithium-ion battery version, 68.8 kilowatt hours, and then there's an 80 kilowatt hour version for long range, which is a slightly more advanced battery. So the performance varies from between 240 to 260 horsepower roughly between those two models, the performance variant being the shorter range one, and around 7.8 seconds to 0 to 60. WLTP rating for the shorter battery is around 300 miles, with around 345 for the larger 80 kilowatt hour battery version. And at the moment there is no UK pricing, but we expect it to start from around £38,000 roughly for the Takumi model, and then there is also a Takumi Plus which has some extra luxury features. So this one that we have here is the standard Takumi. It's in aero grey but has jet black interior. There are a couple of other cars here. I really like the kind of tan interior options. I'll put a few clips of that in as well, and the red that Mazda is known for really pops in the sun, so that is nice. Equipment is really generous as standard, so it includes 19-inch alloy wheels with electrically extendable rear spoiler, which goes based on driving mode, artificial leather, 360 cam, panoramic glass roof with tinted glass and thermal insulation, ambient lighting, a large 14.6-inch central touchscreen with 10.2-inch digital LCD display, Sony audio system with 14 speakers, and also lots of different gimmicks and gadgets on the inside. Think kind of similar to your BYDs and your Teslas. But let's have a little look around then, the styling. So I actually think they've done a fantastic job of this. This paint doesn't show it off in the best detail, but you can see we've got these really nice front lights here which come along the front of the car and meet at the grille, and this front grille is also illuminated, and I'm told that when the car is charging it will also do some kind of illumination dances and when you lock and unlock it. So pretty cool front end design. I think it's really modern, really sharp, kind of still follows the same Mazda ethos, and it's definitely a departure from the Deepal version of the car, so this definitely looks a bit more Mazda than that. The handles are kind of similar to a Tesla. You can see the side profile. It is actually a very long car. It's pretty much in the same realm as the CX-80, somewhere between the older Mazda 6 and the new CX-80. And you can see at the back here we do have this kind of big sort of almost ducktail spoiler design, which is pretty cool. These rear lights, I'm told, are quite reminiscent of those on the RX-7 and include the kind of semicircle design that you have on things like the Mazda 3, which is really cool. And as you can see here, we've got a bit of a gloss black detail down the bottom as well, which does make a difference. Swiss plates on this one, but that's pretty much the same setup as you would have on a UK car. Apologise for the flicker of the lights on the camera as well. But this rear design does enable us to have quite a large cargo area, which I'll show you in a little bit. And it's actually a hatchback, not a saloon, as the shape may suggest. You can see at the back here as well, we've got a bit of detail with this chrome trim that runs along the back. And these doors are also pillarless, which is nice. So yeah, super interesting design. I really like the front end specifically. And I definitely think some of the more metallic paint finishes do set it off. It keeps enough of the Mazda detail, such as the grille, the overall shape, and the light design, that makes it definitely look like a traditional Mazda. Something to note is that on this model, with the longer battery, it does actually have a slower charge time. So 10 to 80% is in around 47 minutes, and it's about half that on the shorter range performance variant. Another thing to bear in mind is the towing capacity is about 1.5 tons, so that does beat out some rivals, as does the weight of the car. It comes in just under 2 tons. So that makes it a little bit lighter than some of the rivals in this class as well. And when we think about the fact that Mazda are doing this as their first kind of major electric car with long range, then actually you'd kind of expect it to be an SUV. But the thing is with SUVs is the drag coefficient is quite high, so therefore you're not going to get much range out of them in certain scenarios. So having a nice slick car like this means a much better drag coefficient and therefore a more economical drive. So let's take you on a tour of the interior of the car. I've got to come around to the other side for this. So the handles are very similar to a Tesla, but they're just the other way around. So you open it like that. And as we get in, you'll see that there are pillarless doors as well. So you get this nice pillarless glass. There's no lamination, which is a bit of a shame, but it is actually quite refined in here, I will say. So definitely they've done some good work there. On the door card, you'll see we've got our Sony audio system, which is standard across the range from what I can tell, and some sort of plastics that do look like metal, so quite a nice finish to the switchgear on there. And we've also got some contrast stitching along the door as well. So let's step in and have a little tour of the inside of the car here. So this is a pretty big departure from Mazdas of old. These seats are quite nice. You've got the Mazda emblem there, and they've got quite a nice headrest to them, lots of adjustment, and also on the passenger side you do have the ISOFIX as well, which is cool. These integrated vents with the chrome, and there's a little bit of texture on the top there. It does look quite nice. It all integrates quite well, but it is very kind of generic. It does look a bit similar to like a BYD or something like that, where you've got kind of a generic display in the middle which controls everything. There's no physical climate controls anymore. It's all done through the display. The graphics that we got here, this kind of looks similar to all of the Chinese brands that are being pumped out now. So, but it's nice that this is here. This is like a shortcut menu that you can swipe into. Sometimes a bit difficult to grab it whilst you're on the move, which is the only thing, but you can customize this complete bottom row, which is good. So it means that you can actually go in and change what these do throughout the year. So if you don't want heating controls there during the summer, you can change them and so on. So that's nice. And you can see that it's kind of Tesla BYD in terms of the setup. We've got an AR head-up display as well, the driving mode stuff. So there are a few levels of driving mode. So you've got a sport mode, and you also have the option for a different adjustment of the brake pedal feel and the steering feel. But there is no one pedal drive. You do still need to drive it with two pedals. So that is a bit of an oversight, I think, if you're looking to compare this to a Tesla Model 3. But it's very similar in its driving experience, I would say, to a BYD Seal. There's also quite a lot of improvement to the ADAS systems, but it's definitely quite intrusive in terms of the lane departure warning and stuff like that. But you can come in here and quickly turn it off, and you can also set shortcuts on the steering wheel. So it's very similar to what you might expect from something like a BYD. There's all your local apps, and then there's also all of your things to do with like the interior of the car, the sort of the 360 cam. So when we go into 360 cam, you can see there's quite a few different modes here. You can go around. This also comes on at low speed, and when you indicate, so a little bit of a strange one, you indicate, it's a bit like a Tesla indicator when you put it down, but it will show you the front wheel rather than a blind spot camera. It shows you the front wheel because the car is quite long, and you can move this screen around as well, but I'm not sure it's as useful as having a blind spot cam. I think they should give you the option to change that should you want to. This does everything that you would expect it to do, and it's more customizable and easy to use than many rivals in this segment. So not too much of a complaint. Even the climate controls, not too bad. You can kind of also go into this mode. If we go back to the home screen, exit that, and you can also just move the car around and then select the function that you want to do. So I can like open the boot from here and all that. So similar to a Tesla, but more interactive. I think this works really well, and there's some shortcuts here which you can customize as well. So overall, this isn't too bad. It's not the best system I've used. You've got a Mazda navigation assistant as well, so you can say the key phrase and it will activate an assistant, and that is really good because what it will do is you can say, "Hi Mazda, open my window," and it will open just your window. It knows where you are in the car based on the position of the microphones, so that's pretty clever. Mazda,
hello,
open my window.
Okay, I'll turn it on.
That works pretty well actually.
Mazda,
Right here.
open my window.
Okay, I'll turn it on.
That opened the passenger window. That works pretty well.
Close my window.
This screen here does have some information in. As you can see, we've got a little bit of data when it comes to like driving stuff. So on the steering wheel, there's a view button there, and you can cycle through a few things on this display in the middle. And there is a head-up display as well, which you can sort of see in the distance there. And on the left-hand side, I've currently got the maps, the power band, and also your drive mode. And drive mode can be selected on the steering wheel here. There's also a shortcut to your 360 cam and all of your driving functions on here. And these two are customizable. control. So you can hit this and there's very many things that you can do. So it's set to wiper level at the moment, but if I press and hold it, it will come up with the customization screen and give me all of the different options that I can set it to. So it's nice that there's two shortcut functions on the steering wheel that you can customize to your preference. I think that makes a nice difference. And these, although they are kind of a glossy material, which is a bit of a shame, they are physical buttons with a physical click, which makes a difference because I really don't like when people like Volkswagen Audi Group implement touch sensors and stuff. Not ideal. So yeah, it does feel off-brand for Mazda, I'll be honest with you, and this needs some work with software, I think. And you can tell that it's a bit more of a generic system, because if we go into the kind of the settings menu, which I'll do now, you can go down here and go to my vehicle, and it tells you all the information about what processors in it, how much RAM it has, and all that kind of stuff. So it's almost like an Android tablet. So yeah, that's something that's not normally visible in a lot of these higher end cars. But yeah, design overall is good, and you've got a nice area up here, you've got an interior cam, and visibility out the back is a bit narrow through this rear window, but the 360 cams obviously help with that. And you have a massive panoramic roof, which does help with the interior ambience, and it's definitely very tinted as well, so no worries about UV from there. In the center, we've got two cup holders, which are generously sized, and some wireless charging bays for your phone. And then underneath there's a large storage area with USB-C and USB-A. You can see it is large because we've got a camera there at the moment. So there's buttons in the side here. You press that, it opens this large center area, and it is really large as well. It's got a nice deep well for you to store things in, so that is always nice. So yeah, it's just not quite as good as something that you would expect from older Mazdas like the CX-80, the Mazda 3, where you've still got some physical controls. This does feel a bit more generic and a bit less on brand for Mazda, but definitely there are some benefits to having this system. So as we step into the back of the car here, you'll see that we do have a nice flat load floor. You can see my tripod's in there at the moment, so you get a bit of a feel for just how flat and nice it is back here. You've also got a digital display for your readout for the fans and the temperature, and also a control for sliding the seat forward and back for the passenger, which is a nice luxurious touch. Mazda emblem in the back here, which is nice, and then a bit of a storage pocket in the back, but nothing too fancy. Now this center area does come down to give you a bit of an armrest, which is always nice, and there's a cup holder built in there as well, and this does have a 60-40 split as well for the rear. In terms of your ISOFIX points, they are the kind that come off and you could lose them, which is a bit of a shame, but it does mean that there's plenty of space around the leather, so you're not going to damage anything. So stepping into the back of the 6E. Now this is in my driving position here at 6 foot, so you can see roughly what we're up against. I'll put this up as well so you can see what the rear space is like. Now, nice flat low floor as I mentioned, so that makes it nice and easy to move your feet around, or if you do have a middle passenger. But the one thing I would say is I'm kind of cramped here for the actual thigh support. This seat is quite low and it doesn't rake up very well, so I feel like I'm sitting quite low to the floor back here, which means that, as you can see, I do have quite long lanky legs, but you can see there's actually quite a bit of a gap here, so it'd be a bit uncomfy for me to do a long journey just because of how high the floor is, because of that battery pack. One thing I will say though is, in terms of how this cabin looks from back here, it seems more open and spacious than it feels in terms of my seating position. This pan roof really helps with that, and there's enough headroom for me at 6 foot easily as well. And the view out the front, it's really nice. It feels like a quality product. It's just not quite spacious enough back here for me, which is a shame, because the actual amount of legroom I have compared to the seat is fine. It's just the seating position isn't right. I feel like I need to be raised up another couple of inches to be comfortable. So for kind of like adult passengers back here, I think they're going to be a bit disappointed for a long journey, but for the kiddies it should be absolutely fine. What is really nice about this car is the cargo area. So when we come around the back and we open it up, there is a button under here to do so, and you can do it on the key as well. You'll see that it is a nice hatchback area. Now the benefit of this is it's a much easier place to load than something like a BYD Seal or a Tesla Model 3, and they're really talking about how that is an advantage. And this is a smaller boot than a lot of its rivals, and you can kind of tell that, but I think the practicality kind of outweighs that, because you've got a very flat load lip here. This one is equipped with an optional kind of rubberized mat which is in there, and underneath the boot floor you don't really have much storage. There is actually just kind of some generic kind of space to put some emergency bits, and you've got the subwoofer built in the back here as well. Unfortunately there is no buttons back here to put down the rear seats. You have to go around and do that manually, which is a bit of a shame, but again, it's not really too big of an oversight. What is nice is that you can just load things in here nice and easy, and it is a wide opening when you actually step back and look. And the fact that the car kind of comes down and has this squared off rear means that you can get slightly taller items at the back as well, which makes it a lot more practical than you might expect for kind of a saloon style car. So I'm going to just take the parcel shelf down now so that you can see like that. for now I'm just going to store it here. It won't really store under there, but that's fine. And when we step into the back of the car, I'm just going to pull the seat down, and you'll notice how much space you have in the back when this goes down, and I'll go around and do the other side as well. So you can see it is a little bit of a faff to go around to the sides of the car to do that, and you are going to have to manually bring those up as well. But it does create a pretty practical space. Another thing that I like is the fact that the seat belts are on runners. It does mean that they're kind of in the way here, but the plus side of that is that they don't snag when you put the seats back up, so that makes it a little bit easier. But you can see nice easy load floor in there now, and again quite a big practical hatch space for loading items. So for a sort of saloon car, pretty good, pretty practical, I would say. So then looking in the front area where there's some storage, you do have to release it under here, which is a little bit of a shame. It's not electronically released like in something like a Tesla, but once you do open that space, you do have some really practical area in there. So there's a catch under here that you need to pull. Once you do that, opens up, and it is on gas strut, so it will stay open itself. And you can see in here at the moment we've actually got this basket accessory, so you can pull this whole thing out, and that's kind of like for store your shopping in, so you can take this inside, which is really cool. But if I cast that aside for just a moment, we've then got this large area in here which is like a waterproof well, and under here, this carpeted area, this actually pulls out completely, and there's a drainage bung in there. So think similar to Ford's Mega Box that it has in the back of the Puma. This is very similar. You can store stuff in there or put your dirty charging cable in there, rinse it out, and then unplug it, and it will drain through there. And then when you want to use it as a storage space again, pop that back in there, and then pop your shopping basket back in there, and jobs are good. But let's head out on a drive then. So on the stalk here, down into drive, and we are going to head off. And what I will say first of all is it is quite refined in this cabin. You find that actually you don't get much noise in terms of road noise on these 19-inch wheels. You also don't get much in the way of wind noise from these pillars. It's a very slick car, and it's very kind of aerodynamic, which is why they've gone for this body style over like an SUV, I would say, really. But it definitely feels a little bit numb in terms of the steering, and you can adjust the weight, and they are saying that there are going to be more tweaks in the software and in the chassis before it hits UK market, so that is something to bear in mind as well. But just for now, it's not exactly the full experience, so it's just something to bear in mind. But for me, I think it does feel a little bit like a BYD in terms of that driving experience. I'm going to give it a bit of a bootful out of here. I'm in the normal mode at the moment, and it does take off quite well. There's enough punch for your day-to-day, don't get me wrong. You're not going to need any more performance than this really, but it's not going to set your hair on fire either. The throttle response also is a little bit sort of dim-witted when you're coming off of the throttle. It takes a second to really respond to that, so you have to be thinking ahead a little bit. So it's not really one for your massively sporty driving, but there is definitely some kind of power there when you need it. So coming out of here, again, I find the camera system a little bit annoying because it will come up with like a full screen display of your front wheel when you turn at low speed, and that's not particularly helpful. I'd rather the blind spot monitors that you get on Kias, Hyundais, and you know, the Tesla and all that kind of thing. I just think that's a little bit more useful than having this view that comes up. Plus it interrupts your Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which I think is a little bit annoying. And you can turn it off, yes. All this stuff is customizable, and that's the beauty of this system they've got on this operating system here, is that a lot of it is customizable, and I especially like those shortcut functions and all of the customizable rotor on the bottom, because it means you can really do a lot that you can't on other cars. But poodling along in traffic is quite pleasant. The brakes are a little bit grabby, and the brakes can be adjusted again. There is different modes for that, but as you can see, I'm kind of lurching around a little bit here because I'm still getting used to the sensitivity of that brake. Definitely feels like a brake-by-wire system where it's got different levels of kind of regen, but it doesn't have that spongy feel that you get from regen brakes. It just feels like a linear kind of pedal, but like I say, a little bit grabby at lower speed, so can potentially become a little bit annoying, I would say. But yeah, nice and refined in here. I really like the seat. I like the driving position. I've got places for my elbows, which is normally only the case in larger SUVs, so that makes a nice difference. But I would definitely say that in terms of the kind of steering feel, there's not a lot of texture through the wheel, and I expect with such a nice kind of steering rack in previous Mazdas that I would feel a little bit more here. But we've got to remember this is based on an entirely different car. They did make a big fuss about the weight distribution. They said it's something like 47-53, so they got as close to 50-50 as they could with this battery pack. And you probably noticed that a little bit in the bends, and it does pull you out nicely, but it's just not quite as sharp as some of the rivals, I don't think. And I would say probably I feel a little bit more confidence in some cars like, you know, a BMW i4 or a Tesla Model 3. So it's in the sport mode at the moment, which means that we do have a bit more throttle response, as you can see, but it's not going to absolutely light your hair on fire. It's nothing in comparison to the Cupra Tavascan I have on loan at the moment, which wants to break my spine every 5 seconds as soon as I put the foot down. But it's nice, it's linear, it does the trick, but it's not going to be a really super engaging experience. But when you pop it down into the comfort mode, it does really soften everything a little bit. It softens the steering response, it softens the braking, it softens the throttle response to make it a bit of a smoother drive. And I could see myself doing a bit of mile munching in this. The 6 was always a really good choice for those company car drivers, you know, the ones that want the kind of diesel options and things like that. And Mazda still makes some awesome diesels, by the way. But moving over into the electric worlds, they've definitely done their best here to try and bring this up to date to the 21st century experience in terms of, you know, lots of Chinese rivals. Tesla have been the benchmark for electric cars for a long time, and now you've got like the BYDs and other brands coming in from those countries as well. I definitely think in this space Tesla has been the benchmark for a while, and you will get a better experience in terms of loading cargo in this because of that hatchback. But what I will say is the actual user experience and the infotainment experience isn't going to be any good in this in comparison, just because I feel like it's a bit unrefined at the moment. This is a big departure for Mazda. Normally in a Mazda you have physical controls, you've got the rotary dial, and this software clearly isn't Mazda design. So it's something to get used to, and it's something that I think over time they will hone and they will kind of iron out any of those kinks that are in there at the moment. And again, this isn't a final UK car, so they're bound to make tweaks for our market as well. But it's just something to bear in mind. It's not what I expected when getting into a Mazda vehicle. This feels a lot more like a BYD with Mazda badges on it. But the company behind the Deepal car this is based on is one of China's biggest car makers and one of their oldest as well. So you'd like to think they know what they're doing. Turning's nice. Like, I feel like the weight of the car isn't that bad, and being under 2 tons is quite impressive for a car of this size and this class. So really, I think actually that's probably not too bad. But it's long, it is very long, so it's going to be more difficult to park than some rivals, and also it's kind of SUV length. So if you want something that's a little bit more comfortable to sit in over long journeys, especially for those rear passengers, you might still want to consider something a little bit higher up. It's an interesting benchmark though. I can see how it's going to leave some Mazda purists disappointed in terms of its driving dynamics, but it is a nice step in the right direction in terms of tech. I just think they need to make some refinements and keep looking at the rivals to see exactly what's working really well. Put it this way, I'll stick to my Tesla for now, but if it was a contest of which one I'm going to turn around and look at in a car park when I lock it, it's going to be this one. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to Mazda for inviting us down to this launch event here today in the UK, and hopefully I'll have a bit more of an in-depth review of this car when it actually hits our market later next year. So all of your likes, comments, subscriptions are appreciated. Hopefully I'll get this car to check out for you very soon, as well as the other cars within the Mazda range. If you want to check out my reviews of the rivals, then please do see them on the channel as well. That's all from me for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.